Hey everyone, I'm going to do a quick tutorial in DaVinci Resolve today. I'm going to bring in a few clips and go over each of the sections here on the bottom panel. So to start, you'll open up DaVinci Resolve and select the new project file. Once you get into that file, come up here to File, Import Media. If you have a lot of clips, you'll want to create bins and organize them, but I only am bringing in a few clips today, just for a quick overview, so I'm only going to bring a few in and not use bins for that. Okay, so on this main page, this is here at the bottom right, this is your timeline. Top right is called the inspector. You can also access the mixer from up here. So you can open that up, and then the sound bars will be moving up and down when you're playing audio. We'll hide that for now. Over here in the bottom left, you have your different effects. You have video transitions. If you hover over each one and then drag your cursor across, you can actually see an example of what the effect would look like. There's also audio transitions, titles. There's other effects and filters that I don't really use. Some of them are in the studio version only. So for the most part, I don't use those unless I'm on a school computer. Up here in the top left is your media pool, where you can see all of your clips you've imported. And you can hide or show your media pool and effects in the top left here by just selecting the buttons. So I'm going to start by bringing in these 4 clips. I want this one in the beginning. So I've dragged my 4 clips in. As you can see, only 2 have audio. The first 2 I actually shot on my mirrorless camera, and the second 2 were on my drone, so that's why only 2 have audio, because my drone does not record sound. And I'm not going to need the audio for these. So if you select, I'm going to select the first one here. You can see the red highlight around both the video and the audio for the clip. They're both selected because these are linked. So this button right here, the chain link icon, shows that they're linked. So if you have a lot of clips and you have dialogue you're trying to keep matched up, you'll definitely want to keep your clips linked. But because I want to get rid of this audio, I'm going to unlink them, so that way I can just delete the audio out of there and not have to worry about it. Your magnet tool here is the snapping tool. So if you want to keep snapping on, you'll keep it highlighted. Sometimes I'll turn it off and then turn it right back on. If I keep it off, it makes it a little complicated. So this, and then this tool right here towards the left is the blade tool. So you can either click it and it'll highlight it and activate it, or you can press the B button on your keyboard and it'll automatically select. The A button will bring you back to your arrow key. So here in the beginning, I'm going to spread these out just a little bit to have some more space. And if you want to zoom in, you can use this slider right here on the right. I'm going to drag it to the right and zoom in just a bit. So I don't want to use this entire clip. So I'm going to press the space bar to start playing through the clip itself. So you can see a little bit of movement from the wind that day. Right before I pan down is where I want to cut my clip. So I press the space bar again to stop. Some cool keyboard controls: if you hold down the letter K and then you press the letter J, it will actually go back slower like that. Or if you want to go the other direction, you can hold down K, press the L button, and it'll go forward. So I want to cut it right before it pans down. So right about there. I'm going to press B for blade, cut that out, and then just delete this because I don't want that part at all. And we're going to do that for each clip. Since this is a quick tutorial, it's not going to be the best video, but just for example's sake. So this clip was actually shot on a gimbal. I probably shot the first one on a gimbal too. So I can show you some of the stabilization options, but it won't be as obvious because, like I say, this was shot on a gimbal. So if I was freehanding it, you would be able to see how much the stabilization will help because I shake really bad. So I probably want to cut it right about there, right before I come back around from behind the tree. right there, a good shot of the house. So you can either use the blade tool to cut clips, or you can hover over the ending until these lines appear. And if you click and drag, you can just drag the end in and it'll take out all of that ending part that we don't want. Okay, and we're gonna wanna do the same thing for these clips too. We have a little more footage than I really need right now. So this is a cool drone shot. I started about face level for me with my drone and slowly sent it up in the air. It's a little bit slower than I want. So I will show you how I speed up part of it and then slow it back down at the end. So this part where it's mainly the top of the house and the trees, I really don't care about that part. So right before I start panning the camera down is where I want to slow it down. So we'll go back. I'm using my JKL keys. Helps me pinpoint it a little bit easier. We'll cut that. And we really don't need all of the ending, so probably to about there. So we'll get rid of that end piece. Now, changing details in clips, you can come up here to the inspector after you select your clip. There's different options. You can transform it. You can zoom in, zoom out, change the position, rotate it. There's a lot of options here. If you ever want to go back to the default settings, you can just press this little backwards arrow on everything you changed and it'll go back to normal. So you can either press and scroll, or you can actually double click and then type in a number if you want to. But we're going to keep it back to what I shot it at. You can also crop, you can do some dynamic zoom. Dynamic zoom will let you ease in, ease out, or both on a video. I really don't use much of composite. You can do speed change, stabilization, all kinds of stuff. So when I retime part of a clip, I usually just select the clip in the timeline, right click, and go up to retime controls. You can actually see in here the key commands are on the right hand side. So on a Mac, to access retime controls, you could do Command R. I haven't been using key commands as much as I should, so I still right click everything. Once you select the retime controls, you'll see these arrows pop up on the clip you added it to. You can press this drop down. So right now it's on 100%, so it's at the speed that I recorded it at. You can hover over change speed. If you go under 100%, it'll slow it down. If you go above, it will obviously speed it up. So we'll start with 200%. And I like to drag if it's in the middle of a clip like this, I like to drag all my clips back together. That way I can see it in one fluid take instead of having a blank screen for part of it. So we'll rewatch that. So we have a slow shot in the beginning, which is actually more than I want. We can take some of that beginning out too. Snapping is especially helpful when you're using this ending piece, these little 2 lines here to cut part of a clip. The snapping just makes it snap right up to your cursor, your red cursor here. If snapping was off, it won't snap exactly back to the cursor. So sometimes it's helpful to have snapping on. So let's see. Right before I start moving is when I will have it cut to. So we'll watch this with the 200% speed change. So it's slower, and then it speeds up right here, kind of in the boring part, and it'll slow down right before I start panning downwards with the camera on the drone. So that's still a little bit slower in the middle than I want. So I'm going to try 400% because that's our next option. We'll come back over here. And it speeds up and slow down for the pan. I like that a lot better. The faster speed makes my slow pan a little more obvious and it feels a little cinematic to me. So I like that. So we'll get that moved over, and then this should be our last clip I've added. Okay. So this one, more overhead shots. We really don't need much of this. I think I'm just going to use the part where I pan over the water. So we'll start it about here. I'll use my blade tool. And we can end it right there so you can see that lake in the background. And that can be our main focus of that shot. Oops. Drag that back in. Okay. I'm going to zoom in on my timeline a little bit so I can see everything better. So I'm doing all of this in the edit page. Down here in the bottom panel, you can see the cut pages here. The only time I've really used cut page was in Digi 2000, and then I kind of switched to the edit page and very rarely come back to this. But I think cut page is a good place to start, or if it's something a little more simple. You can also get to your media pool from this bottom panel and see all the clips that you've imported into your project. But I'm going to go back to edit page for now. So this clip, as you can see, these first two clips, the color really is not bad. It's pretty vibrant. I took these both on my mirrorless camera. The last four clips here, well, four because I split them up, they're a little more muted, a little more dull, and we definitely need to do something about that. So we will do some color grading first, and then I will come back and show you how to do titles. So if you come here to the bottom panel and this circle says color, you'll press that. And here you can see the lineup of the beginning of each clip that we have in our timeline. So this first one is the leaves against the sky. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll come in right underneath the clip images. There's another panel. I usually come to this third one from the left. I'll select this arrow with the black point, and I'll pick the darkest part of my screen, or I will lose it. And I'll just come in here and select a dark portion. And then I'll select a light portion. It didn't seem like it did too much to this one, but I always like to start with that. So a lot of times I'll also add color boost here at the bottom, bump that up just a little bit, add some vibrancy. You can change the temperature if you want it to be warmer. You can click and drag to the right, cooler, click and drag to the left, or you can double click and type in a number too, whatever you prefer. I usually like things a little bit warmer, so we'll warm that up. You can change your tint, your contrast, mid, detail, pivot. At the bottom next to color boost, you have shadows, highlights, saturation, hue. And in the middle, you have lift, gamma, gain, and offset. This is a little bit harder, well, a lot harder when I do it on my laptop. I like to go into the studio to do color grading where we have access to the actual color wheels. So that way you can spin them instead of trying to use the trackpad on my laptop. So you can either, on each of these, you can either click the circle and move it around, or you can change the numbers here. Like say, you can either click and drag or double click and type in the number, or you can use the wheel at the bottom too. So a couple options on how to use that. Like say, these first two weren't that bad. I really probably won't change much right now, maybe warm them up. But the drone shots were the really bad ones. So I'll show you an example on this one. So I'm going to select the black point here. And the darkest part is probably either the front door or these windows. So I'll just select one of those. I'll select the lightest point. Just kind of evens it out a little bit. And on this screen, if you press the letter Z as in zebra, it'll actually fit your clip to this screen. So if you've zoomed in or zoomed out accidentally, just hit Z and it'll bring you back to this size. I'm going to add some color boost to this, make it vibrant, warm it up again. And from this screen, since I have a couple more shots that were taken same time of day, same setting, I shot these clips back to back anyway, so I know the timing is all the same. With this clip selected, I can hit, on a Mac, I can do Command C, Windows, I guess it would be Control C, but I'm on a Mac right now. And then I can select this next clip, Command V to paste, and it will paste all the settings from the first one to the second one. So if I want to keep them pretty cohesive, I can do it that way. Then you can always make minor changes, but that way it stays somewhat uniform. Because after I look at any colors for too long, I end up making them all look different because I change my mind halfway through, and then I have to go back and fix all of them. So this is way more vibrant. This one, it looks like our sky's a little blown out. Maybe we'll bring our highlights down. But anyway, so that's the color grading screen, just like a basic. You can come into each of these different sections. You have HDR, which brings you into more of the temperature control, exposure, saturation, dark shadows, lights. There's a lot of options when it comes to color grading. But for now, I'm going to leave it as is, and I'm going to come back to my edit page. So in the beginning, I want to add a title. So since this was for a real estate listing, on the copy that I delivered to the client actually had the address on this title slide. So I'm going to come over here. Let's see, which title do I want? When you're in this title page, you can also hover over it and scroll, and it'll show you how it would appear on the page. So we'll just drag this one over here. Maybe. Try it again. Okay. Now this is another time that I may turn snapping off. So I brought my cursor all the way to the end, right between my first and second clips. I'm going to turn snapping off for now and adjust the length of my title. I like to make it a little bit shorter than my first clip. So that way when I fade it out, it doesn't fade out into the next clip and look terrible. So I shortened it enough. I'm going to turn snapping back on because I will want it later. When you come into the text, I always like to have my cursor in the middle so that way I actually see it on the big screen. And normally I will just type in the property address. So as long as your title clip is selected in your timeline, you'll be able to have all your options in your inspector here. You can change the font type, and if you just hover over it, well, let's get some we can read. If you just hover over it, you don't even have to click on it. You can just see the different font types. I don't remember which one I originally went with for this video, so we're just going to use this one for now. You can also change the color, so if you press color, some fonts have the option right underneath the font type. It'll say regular. You can hit the drop down. Some of them will have bold, italic, bold italic. So if you want to change that, you can. Not all fonts have those options. Some of them you are only stuck with regular. If you want to change the color, you just press your color box and then this will pop up. You'll have all the different options. You can just select different colors, see what you like best. Once you're done selecting a color, then you'll want to press OK, and it'll bring you back into your inspector. You can change the size here if you want to make it bigger, smaller. You can click and drag in the scroll bar or click and drag in the number space, or you can type in a number if you know exactly what size you wanted. You can change the tracking, which is the space between each character. The line spacing, which would be the space between the street address and then the city and town. You can change the position, so if you want it a little farther left, right, up, and down, you can change that using position X and Y. And on this title, as you can see, there's a line on each end that's a color. So right now it's set to blue automatically, but if you wanted to change that line color, you can press that color box and just change the line there too. So whatever color you want, you can select that, press OK. And then since I like to make my title slides kind of fade in and out, I'll come over here to my effects tab under video transitions, and I usually use cross dissolve, something kind of soft, not too overwhelming or crazy. Agents are just trying to sell homes, so they don't need anything that's like a music video. So try to keep it a little toned down for them. So you just click, drag, and drop where you want it. I want one on the beginning and the end. You can use, once you hover over it, you can make it shorter or a longer transition. So a longer transition would just fade in way slower, and then it can fade out quicker. I usually keep them pretty short and sweet. Bring it in, and then it goes back out. And I have it fading out before the clip ends, so it's not changing in the middle of a clip transition. But if you wanted, you could always drag it over and make it overlap into your next clip too. Shorten a little bit. Okay, now for music, it's loud. I'm going to click and drag it down here into this audio track. As you can see, based on the waveforms right here, it is extremely loud. So I'm going to go ahead in the top right corner, I'm going to open up the mixer, and down here you'll see A1 and bus 1. So A1 is our green one right here. We can actually rename this. I don't have any dialogue in this video. If I did, I would want to have multiple audio tracks. So if you want to make another audio track, you can just right click here, hit add track. You can make a mono track, stereo track, whatever you need. And then once you add it, it'll just appear right underneath it. To rename these, you can just click where it says audio 1. I'm going to name this one music because that's where I put my music. If I had dialogue, you could label it dialogue. And if you had multiple people in the video, you could even put their names there and separate each person's dialogue onto a different track. But since I only have music, I don't even need this track. So we're just going to delete it. I do a lot in the edit page because that's how I was doing it before I learned the Fairlight portion. But you can either hover over the line here and pull it up or down and it'll change your volume, or you can change it using this too, this little scroll bar over here on the right under A1. So as you can see, the music is hitting in the red and we definitely don't want that. So I usually pull it down a good ways, and I just keep an eye on it. A lot of times I'll let my dialogue creep up into the yellow, but I definitely don't want any of this in the red. And you can do all of this in the Fairlight tab. So if you come here to the bottom to the music node on the right, then you'll be able to see just the audio. When you're trying to clip out words like or like in a dialogue, I find it much easier to do it on this screen. I can zoom in and focus only on that, especially if it's B-roll covering it, so it doesn't matter what their mouth is doing on camera because you won't see it anyway. And in the Fairlight tab, you also have options like a de-esser, de-hummer. There's lots of effects you can use to add to your sound clips that will help improve it if it wasn't recorded the best. But I'm going to come back into my edit page for now. Get rid of my mixer. So as you can see here, my video clips are way shorter than my music. So I'm going to cut a lot of my music off. And here at the end, I will often fade out. So these white tabs in the top corner, when you hover over a clip, that will let you fade. So a lot of times I'll fade the end of a video and I will fade the music too. So that way they fade together. So at the end, as you're fading out of the video, the sound is also fading out and it's not just a harsh cutoff. Sometimes you'll want to play around with it. Some music, as it builds up, you don't really want it to like end in the middle of a build up. So you might have to play around with the sound like that. That's really the main pages in DaVinci, just a quick little overview of each of them and the different options you have. A lot of times I only add my transitions to my title slides. There's a lot of options. You could add them between your clips too, but I haven't been really doing that much lately. When you're done with your video completely, you'll come down here to the bottom right to this rocket ship that says deliver. I normally export in the H.264, but there's also options for TikTok, Twitter, Vimeo, YouTube, ProRes, whatever wherever you're posting to is what your export settings will depend on. So you'll just want to name your video. I always save mine to my movies folder on my computer. You can render as a single clip, individual clips. I always do single clip. If you're piecing a bunch of clips together, it seems useless to export them as individual. You have video export options, audio export options, and file export options. Here you can change your format, your codec. You can do horizontal or vertical resolutions. So another place that you can change this resolution, if you go back to your edit tab and you come up here to file and then project settings. Right now it's set to 1920 by 1080. I shot it horizontally. I usually like to give my clients options. So I shot it horizontal, but if they were wanting it for a reel on social media, you can come into these project settings, press use vertical resolution, save, and then it automatically cuts it down. So this is where it would come in handy if you cut down a horizontal video to vertical. If you wanted to come in and change the position, that way certain things were in view on the screen, you could do that. Since I edited it in horizontal, we're going to keep it that way though. So I'm going to go back and change that. And then we'll go back to deliver page. So like I said, there's your resolution, your frame rate, just any settings you could think of that you may need for exporting. At the bottom, there's also an export subtitle section. So if you were to do subtitles, you would want to make sure you come down here and select to export those too. I had a video I did one time and they were speaking Portuguese, so I had to make sure it was translated to English in the subtitles. And I could not figure out why it would not translate the subtitles I worked so hard on. So come down to this bottom setting. Usually it's not expanded like that. So you would come in and it would look like this. You would scroll down, you'd see advanced settings, subtitle settings, and you would just click those arrows and it would open up all of those. Once you select everything you need over here, you'll just hit add to render queue. It'll pop up here on the right. And then once you hit render all, you'll see it. A little green bar will come up and show you how far rendered it is. And then at the end, you can just, if you're on Mac, you can go into your Finder under your movie selection if that's where you decided to export the location to, and you can access it from there. So that was really just a quick and basic settings that I use almost every time I create a video in DaVinci. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to help with whatever you're working on. The DaVinci certification tutorials are also super helpful and they give you a step-by-step walkthrough. So there's one specific for the colors page and the Fairlight page, and they're all really good practice when trying to learn how to use this program. But like I say, if you have any questions, just let me know. I'm more than happy to help.